Hello, I want to talk with you today about how I sense that humanity is at a crossroads, at a choice point. This is something that I've long felt for a number of years, and in fact, a little later on, I'm going to be talking about a book I wrote in 2012 where that was a key focus, the crossroads that humanity is at. However, I want to acknowledge at the outset of this video that I'm filming it in March 2025. It's in the midst of a lot of political turmoil here in the United States. And although this video is inspired by that turmoil, it's not limited by it. My response and what I want to be talking about is a spiritual choice that we're at, and not necessarily limited by the political choices that we see many of us being faced with in this current time. You know, I've got a lot of friends that I've had these conversations with regarding the angst and emotions they're feeling around the current state of the world. And I recognize there's people out there who are happy about all the turmoil that's going on and the political changes. But at least in my circle of friends, most of the ones I've talked with are expressing angst, sadness, fear. And in fact, if we look at it logically, they're going through the stages of grief as they recognize the loss of the old country and the old ways in which things were handled in the United States. And as they sense that loss, they feel a degree of grief about it. So what are the choices that we're faced with right now? You know, many of them are choices that are in the political arena. We can look at it as simply a choice between, do we continue democracy or do we choose autocracy? Are we going to have the rule of law or are we going to allow law to fall away? Are we going to be as a country, the United States, a force for good, that shining beacon of light on the hill, or are we going to be a neighborhood bully who pushes people around and tries to get what we want? Are we going to focus on the common good for all people, or are we going to focus on the selfish needs of a few? We could go on with how we can look at the various choices that we're faced with, and all of those choices that I just listed are choices which we have to make and look at and consider as we move and navigate through this physical world. But the choice I want to call us to, and the one that my book from 2012 called us to, was a recognition of a more central or more spiritual choice that we're faced with. And that's how we look at the world and everyone in it. Do we look out and see everyone as separate and apart from us? Things that are separate entities that we're in competition with? Or do we see them as things that we are all united with in oneness, and we're there to cooperate with them? At its most essence, the choice which humanity is faced with on its spiritual path is a choice of, do we see everything as one, or do we see everything as divided? And that's the choice that humanity is faced with currently and has been for many years now. You know, there's an old joke I like to use in many settings, and the joke is very brief. It goes like this. There's two types of people in the world: those who divide things into two categories and those who don't. And of course, the joke aspect of it is that by the asking of or pointing out of the two categories, you're by nature saying you're the kind of person who divides things into two groups. But there's a great spiritual wisdom in that joke, in the sense that there's an aspect in all of us that likes to break things into two groups: right versus left, right versus wrong, blue states, red states. You know, all of the things that we debate in the political world, we can divide into various categories. And we tend to do all that in all of our daily lives in this material world, as we go through a sense of making a discernment about this or this, this or this. It's me, it's you. One of the natures of this physical world is our experience of duality or multiplicity, that we experience everything as separate and apart from each other. But as I often say in my videos, we're spiritual beings having a human experience. And at our spiritual essence, we are all united in oneness. We are one. Everything is interconnected. Our spiritual essence comes from oneness. It's birthed out of oneness. We move through an experience of separation and multiplicity, and we evolve back into an awareness of oneness. And in fact, that's the shorthand for the spiritual evolutionary journey, is that we came from oneness, we're born into the world of form in this material world, we sense things as separate and apart from each other, Yet we're returning, we're growing, we're evolving back, not only physically, but in our consciousness, to a recognition that everything is one, and that we move and transcend the world of form and its duality and can sense and know at our spiritual truth that everything is one in a spiritual oneness, then that is the return home, the hero's journey back to recognizing the truth of who we are as that spiritual beings anchored in oneness. Now, I mentioned a moment ago that this choice point that I saw us at is something that I reflected in a book that I wrote a number of years ago. And in fact, the book was published in 2012. It's called Be Yourself, Evolving the World Through Personal Empowerment. Now, this is going to sound like a commercial for a few minutes for the book, and if you choose to get a copy of it, that's great, but I want to give you the essence in this video so you can see how I've long felt that humanity is at this central choice point between duality and unity. And in the book rather, I mentioned in there that I felt that humanity was at a choice point, and that the choice point was driven by a lot of chaotic and divisive actions that I saw in the world. And keep in mind, this is 13 years ago or more, where I was seeing things like income inequality, or the takeover our government by moneyed interest, or the very nature that science sometimes was being weaponized to use science as a tool, not for necessarily finding truth, but to state and win your position by stating something was true based on science. Sometimes science was seen as a means of dividing us through a materialistic science of materialism and scientism. I could also see religions that were, through their dogma, were dividing us into separate camps and saying it's us against them and so forth. There was category after category or example after example in the book that I listed as a quick snapshot of how I saw the world getting into this such a degree of divisiveness and winners versus losers mentality that I thought even then that we were at a key choice point in our humanity. Here's a quote from the book where I gave an example of that. In it, I said, another symptom I witness is the growing attempt by a minority of people to control our social systems. These individuals are driven by either selfish greed or fervent ideology. This was a type of divisiveness that I was seeing years ago, and obviously in reading that description, it certainly relates to some of the experiences that we're going through here in 2025. So the question then becomes, what's the key choice point? What is the choice that we want to make? Yes, at the world of form, it's those things I mentioned earlier about, do we want to maintain our democracy, or do you want to allow us to be under a dictator, or all of those things? Do we want to have war, or do we want to have peace? Do we want to help uplift people so that everyone is successful, or do we want to continue the path of income and inequality where there's a greater and greater schism between the haves and the have-nots? What kind of world do we really want to create? In the book, here's how I put it. I said, so what are our choices here? In one direction lies a world of peace and prosperity, where all humans are valued and have the opportunity to express themselves and succeed. In this world, technology makes life easier. The Earth's resources are valued, and humanity serves as a good steward of the planet. In the other direction lies a world of violence and scarcity, where humans are in competition for limited resources. Some of us will come out as winners. Most will end up as losers with little opportunity. In this world, technology may assist us, but it might overtake us. The earth is changed for the worse by humanity's neglect. And then in summary, I add, although your descriptions may differ slightly, I have little doubt that most of you have looked to the future and seen similar choices ahead. Which road will we follow? How can we make the best choice? What can you do? What can I do? Now, in my book, I'll give you sort of a synopsis of what I suggested, that I saw 3 keys to moving us to a higher future. And those 3 keys were to focus on more how we are alike than how we are different. When you think of how much energy we put into every day of dividing ourselves into 2 camps or 2 groups, that only serves to continue to divide us. We need to find ways and spend energy each day in finding ways in which we are alike. And in the book, I go through a lot of examples of ways in which we have more in common than we have to divide us. The second key is to focus on a common vision for the future. Many of us look out to the future and we have different ideas about the direction in which we wish to see the future unfold. And we tend to focus on those differences. But I think when we get down to the roots of what all of humanity wants, we find there again is more in common with our desires from the future than there are our differences. And in the book, I'll outline those commonalities to which I call us to focus upon. And the third key or aspect of the book in which I ask us to look at to lead us to that higher future is to define what I call being yourself. And by that, I mean to recognize that each of us at our spiritual essence has a divine calling within us. Call it a life purpose, call it a gift or talent, but you have something within you that is calling forth for you to express and for you to give and be in the world. What is that? It's been my experience that the more that we can identify our inner callings and our inner purpose, the more that we develop and live from that place, the more joy we have in our lives, and the more that we want to give to the world and be of service to the world, and to be to others, uplift the planet through the service that we give. So most of the last half of the book is about finding, and there's tips and techniques and things that you can use, exercises and examples to help you find your life purpose. Now, again, we're at a choice point. We can choose which direction we're going to go. My book outlines 3 ways in which I see us can shift our focus to being on the future. If you're interested in learning more about the book can be found through most common booksellers. It's available online through Amazon and others. If you'd like to get a copy directly from me, there's a link and information in the show description about that. I do have a limited number of copies available, and access to those can be found in the show description. However, I've outlined for you the key aspects of the book. And what I really am calling you to think about in this video today is how do we transcend the sense of separation and make the choice that takes us to the highest future for where we want to go. At essence, I want to give you a little tip. Whenever somebody presents something to you as it's either this or it's either this, I ask you to look beyond that and to find the common ground. So when we talk about there's 2 kinds of people who divide things into twos and those who don't, what's the common ground in that? Well, the common ground is we all divide things into two-ness in our world of form. But when we become anchored in the world of spirit and develop our sense of oneness of the universe, we all sense and recognize the unity of all it is. So there is both aspects of dividing things into twos and seeing the unity exist in all of us. And in fact, anytime you're presented with something that is either or, I call you to look for the and. Where is the and in that? Even in the description I gave you a moment ago, where I said that we all could go in one of 2 paths, and that we can either go for more separation or we could go for more unity. And I'm obviously calling us to the path of unity and oneness. But I want to recognize the fact that within all of us, we are human beings in a multiplicity of a form, a universe of form and time and separation, and that our experience here in this world is one where we're separate and apart from one another. I'm talking to you via this mechanism, and so hence this sense of being on the internet or looking at a video or listening to me talk has a sense of separation and multiplicity to it. But at the same time, underlying everything is a recognition of unity. In fact, the ultimate spiritual path is to grow in our awareness, to not only know that our oneness is anchored in spirit, but to recognize that the unity and the experiences that we are having in the world of form are part of that unity. In a sense, the spiritual path often speaks about a development of an experience of witness consciousness where we separate ourselves from and see the world as an illusion of which we're separate from. In that space, we enter into the void. But that is an intermediary step to the actual non-dual awareness where we recognize in the true sense of non-duality that the world of spirit and oneness and the void itself are united with the world of form and multiplicity. This may sound like a bunch of mumbo jumbo when you're listening to this right now, but as you develop along the spiritual path, as you move from a sense of we're separate and apart into a sense of unity, and you let go of the world of form and it's controlling all of your actions, and you move into more a spiritual awareness of oneness, one of the intermediary steps is to develop that sense of letting go of the world of form. But ultimately, you return to an acceptance of the world of form and recognize its place in the unity. The oneness incorporates a sense of oneness and a sense of duality within it. So our choice in this moment is to say, how can we live in the world of form with an awareness of unity? That is the call and the choice that we're all made to look at in this moment. That's what I wrote about in my book. That is what I'm asking you to consider right now. Now, there's lots more that I could say on this, but I've probably gone on too long already. So I'm going to give you 5 quick ideas on how you can build an idea or act in the world with both an idea of unity and with multiplicity, and consciousness at the same time. And the first thing that I invite you to look at is your spiritual practices. What are you doing to anchor yourself into growing on that spiritual path to knowing and understanding unity at the deepest essence? Staying anchored through meditation, affirmations, spiritual readings, prayer work, whatever your tool or process is for developing a sense of unity consciousness, you need to grow and expand. The world every day is shouting in your face, separate, 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 separate. What you need is to take some time from that shouting at you in the world of form to anchor yourself into the unity through spiritual practices. Then come back into the world of form. Come back into the world of form, but with healthy boundaries. Healthy boundaries, that's the second tip. So first, the spiritual practices. Self is healthy boundaries. There are going to be people, other expressions of the one, who do not know and act from their sense of unity and oneness. And they're going to be doing things that are not in the best interest of the world or you, and things that ultimately could harm your aspect of the one, you in this physical life. And so when you see people who are mistreating you or doing things that are politically incorrect or wrong from a sense of separation and fear and trying to control others, have healthy boundaries around them. Do not let them overtake you and your oneness through their inactions and their inappropriate actions in the world of form. So healthy boundaries is second. Third is love. Bring more love to the planet. If you're really anchored in oneness, then you see that even people who are acting incorrectly are spiritual beings moving through the human experience, and they've forgotten their truth, and they're worthy of love. And yes, it's hard to bring love to bear to people who you see that are mistreating others or yourself. But I ask you to bring more love to the planet in whatever way and form that can be. Start within your own family, your own circle or network of friends, your pets, however you can do it, is to bring love to a greater and greater circle of people on the planet. Bring love to the world at a greater and greater level. So 3 is more love. 4 is to find appropriate action. Again, this could tie back to your life purpose that I was mentioning a minute ago. If you find your life purpose and it matches some aspect of how you need to show up in the world to bring action into the world, especially action in the political choices in which we're faced in the current environment, bring that action to bear. But you have to do it in your own way. You look out at the world of form and all the stuff that's going on. What within you intuitively is called to act? Are you called to write your congressman, to go politically march, to contribute financially or your time and talents to certain political groups? Are you called to be a force for good at a soup kitchen, or help others who are in need? What is your calling? Come back and take your gifts and talents and bring them into the world of form for a place of love and oneness. And the final thing, the final fifth tip I'll bring you, is do not get overwhelmed by all the stuff going on in the world. Recognize that there is a gift in life and to experience joy. So my fifth tip is to experience joy every day. Ask what brought joy into your life that day. You should have some experience that is joy-filled. If you look back over your day and you did not experience any joy that day, note what at least brought some degree of happiness and set the intention to bring more joy into your life. The thing is, we can focus on the negativity that's going on in the world, and we can focus on it so much that it overwhelms us emotionally and we can live miserable lives. But the life that we're living here, this physical material life, this human experience that we're moving through, as spiritual beings moving through this experience, this physical life is a gift. And we should spend our time on planet Earth bringing joy into the gift of life, bringing our talents to the life itself. So, in summary, yes, there's a lot going on in the planet, but we're at a choice point. Yes, we've got choices in the political arena which we can make choices upon, but I want you to see the higher and greater choice that you and I and everyone on the planet is faced with, and that is, do we see ourselves as united in oneness, or do we see ourselves in separation? As we move through the life, it's easy to focus on separation in this physical life. But I want you to anchor yourself in your spiritual truths, where it sees the unity and oneness and the power of love, and to bring those along with your unique talents and gifts back to the physical world and uplift the planet to help yourself and to others grow into a sense of oneness by expressing our talents and by living in oneness and bringing joy to the planet. I hope this has been beneficial. If so, please drop a comment to me. Be sure to hit the like button. And as always, I appreciate you watching the videos I produce. Thank you.